There you are. What's good, people? This is episode 181 of the Option Podcast. Guess what? Guess who's back? Back again. That's Wendy Jones. I'm Jason DeBiz. This is the Option Podcast. The episode starts right now. It's good, Wendy.
Oh man, I'm excited to do this. It feels like a Friday. It's only Wednesday.
I know, but it doesn't feel right unless we do this.
Mind your own business. Why don't you mind your own business?
It's my song.
It's the Wendy Jones song. What's up, people? Along with Wendy Jones, I'm Jason DeVis. This is episode 181 of the Option Podcast. Lost my voice a little bit from singing karaoke, singing my behind off. I'm going to do the same tonight. What's up, man?
Oh man, this is great. I love it.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're 181 episodes in. That's amazing.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of discipline, you
Yeah.
know. I watch those other podcasts, and guess what? The ones that are still there, you know? Yeah.
You've covered a lot of good stuff.
I didn't think it would be as big as it is now. Like,
Well, that's what
it's not like
consistency-
huge, but like,
No, but that's where consistency gets you.
yeah, wow. Just grateful that people are interested. Grateful that, you know, I have an analytic that's close to like 1 out of every 5 people who click on it listen to the whole thing.
Wow.
You know, this
that's
ain't exactly
huge.
a
Yeah.
6-minute CNN interview, is it?
No,
you
and
know.
yeah, given the American attention span, that's huge.
So, for those of you that have been living under a rock that don't know who Wendy Jones is, or those of you that don't watch the podcast, she's been on this podcast probably like 9 times, right? You
don't
were
know.
something
It's a
I
lot.
affectionately refer to as a revolving guest. We've been doing a show together called Undivided.
Yes, and I can't wait for people to see more of it. You know, we're getting our sea legs, and it's so good.
Right.
And the premise behind it is we have a great time, but the premise behind it of how people can discuss, you know, current issues, like current events, and just critically think and disagree and still be friends, like that's the premise. Because where we've gone in America and all of this, like I can't be friends because you voted for so-and-so, and I can't be friends with you because you think this, that's not the America I want to live in. And we're pretty far down that path. So I like what we're doing to change that.
Well, I had reservations about it because sometimes you need to draw attention. You need conflict, right?
True.
In fact, drama, in
Yeah.
in the classic sense of the definition, is the recreation of conflict between individuals or an individual presented in front of an audience as if it's happening right now. That's drama.
Mm-hmm.
Most theater people, y'all double check with me, but I think I got that right.
Mm-hmm.
And I had reservations because we had a lot in common.
Mm-hmm.
For the audience listening, I'll just shorten it. We were going to call it politically homeless because if you talk to Wendy Jones, and if you talk to me, and if you're deep into politics or whatever, you're always going to ask yourself, what side are they on?
Right.
Like yesterday they were saying this, and today they're saying that. Why? I thought we were on the same side, and I was curious how it was going to work because even though we have our differences, someone can have a conversation with you and have no idea what political party you are.
Right.
They might know how you're raised, you know, but
Yeah. And, you know, that's because I think mainstream media is trying to put everybody into silos, right? You have to believe all of these things. This is the platform. Or this is the conservative platform. This is the liberal platform. This is the Republican. This is the Trump loving, the MAGA. Like they're trying to put everybody, lump you into one silo and say you have to believe this. And critical thinking Americans are being drowned out in the current media environment. And that's what why we have such a good time talking is because we're both critical thinkers. So we're going to think one thing on, you know, whether, you know, what to do about the homeless mental health issue, what to do about education, we critically think. But the thing that I think draws us together is that we're both pro First Amendment, And there's a big conversation going on there now.
And second.
Yeah, well, there's a big conversation going on there too. But this concept of being able to get your story out there and how big the struggle is for some and not for others is where all of this independent media is coming from. And there's a huge swath of America that's not being represented in the stories that are out there. And I think that's where we connect, because we have very different upbringings. But as long as you're willing to critically think, people can have conversations. But it's happening in places like, it's not happening on the news, which I don't know who wants to watch the news anymore, but not me.
Well, all right. Well, let me give everybody a brief synopsis of my politics. And when you're listening to me, I want you to think of this song. I'll just whistle it. Everybody got that song? Die Hard with a Vengeance. That was like my favorite version of that. If we come a long way from my mama's pouring Cheerios, all right? All right, so listen up. I love two things in life: my guns and my gay friends. In fact, I think we ought to arm gay people everywhere. Just picture it. My man Brandon Clemens, 6-pack abs. Kyle Friend, 6-pack abs in front of a billboard with a big old AR-15 saying, "Only you can prevent a hate crime." That's what I'm about. Get with it, son. So,
Yeah,
just having a
and
little
the
fun.
mainstream media would not let you put those two things together. No. Because you must be, if you are pro Second Amendment, you must be a homophobe. That's what they do. No.
Well, I wanted us to, we'll definitely come back to Undivided, because I think what the show's about, but we stumbled onto something that I just literally wrote down to get back to Undivided. But the method, actually, I was going to get to the method, and I was going to get to the weaponization, right? So if you don't think transgender, right, men should play in female sports, the weaponization is all transgender people, right? Even though the transgender people might share your sentiment, but the weaponization is you don't care about that, right?
Yeah.
If you don't think Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, the weaponization is you don't care that our president got shot. You're floating, this man died, and you're floating conspiracies, right? The pandemic, right? The weaponization was doctors, right? You're not following the science. You don't believe the doctors, when the real threat was legal,
Right.
fraudulent data.
Yeah.
Data that was never existed,
Right.
that we were lied to.
Yeah.
And for YouTube purposes, I'm just reflecting the opinions of others that Wendy and I may or may not share. So, that people listening could take it or leave it, but we're not trying to inspire people to do something stupid. But I wanted to clear that up, because there's a weaponization. If you even utter the word Israel, then you're anti-Semitic, right?
Yeah.
You want safe borders so people don't whatever. You're anti-immigrant, right? So there's this weaponization of you having a sentiment, and in order to combat that sentiment, they have to use these people as shields. Even our own sport, like volleyball. Mm-hmm. I said it's a good old boys club, and it's non-inclusive, and I think that's their downfall. They weaponize the players against me. Oh, you don't care about the players. Oh, these guys they're busting their behind, and I'm like, ain't nobody saying nothing about the players, right? So, but the point I'm trying to make is that there was always a weaponization where they put someone who's in an occupation or a situation of nobility, or just pure innocence, right? Transgender people are purely innocent in this thing. They're, on a general level, mm-hmm. They identify with that, and that's fine, right? Mm-hmm. Doctors, you want to help people, right? So you put these people as shields, or even cannon fodder, to defend opposition politics.
Well, yeah, because they're trying to force people into real black and white issues, and it takes intelligence to live in a dualistically thinking world. And they're not the news, the stories that are out there, the mainstream media, social media, they're not promoting dualistic thinking. Like, not everything. There are shades of gray. You and I both love the Matthew McConaughey quote.
Conservative early, liberal late. Yeah.
If you can ground yourself in some principles and some values, you can see that as you get older, seeing the shades of gray is a sign of maturity, right? But that's not what's being promoted. And they are weaponizing people, and they are creating classes of people that they're not teaching people how resilient they are. They don't want us to all get along, to see common humanity. They want to divide us. And I'm tired of it. Like, it doesn't work.
And that's what the show is, yeah.
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 It doesn't work. I mean, I'm not a racist. I'm not a homophobe. I'm not, but you could take one thing that I think and people would say, oh, that's the label that gets slapped on you. Right.
Because it's too complicated and it takes too much work to understand a nuance and to understand someone's intricacies. It's too much. There's people feel like they have a finite amount of time in the day. So if you're just this mainstream person that just wants to watch the news 15 minutes a day to make sure you're up on current events, that's fine. If you're someone that's neck deep into politics, there are so many levels of political discussions where you thought because you're deep into politics, you have enough time to talk about one thing. You don't, because you're stretched thin with 10 other things where you only have a trigger. So, and this whole social media banning thing, everyone thinks, and a lot of Republicans think, oh, they're coming after us. They're coming after the right. And I don't think that's wholeheartedly false, but I think Republicans are missing the point here. What they're missing is that they could have come after them anytime they felt like it. It wasn't January 6th that started that. I mean, it could have happened in any instance. Wall Street, right? The fall of Wall Street, the Iraq War, before social media. But the attack was on a demographic of people you're talking about. We're talking, if I'm going to do labels, right? And hold that thought. If I'm going to do labels, there are people who are progressive, who are left to the left, who voted for Obama twice, who voted for Biden, who were promised things, particularly my friends in the black community. They don't care about black people. We care about black people. Okay. I mean, 12 to 16 years, I'm still in the same boat. I'm still getting shot in the back. I'm still, being profiled. I'm still, right now they just struck down affirmative action, which we're going to talk about later. So there's two demographics of people. There are people who are left to the left. They're called progressives. And there are people called centrist right. Those are people that are like, you know what? I'm pro-abortion. That person's anti-abortion. Same-sex marriage isn't my thing, but I have a free speech issue. I have an anti-war issue, and that guy on the left agrees with me on that. Yeah. And we can put our differences aside for something that they consider emergent, and that's why I think the Republicans are wrong on this. It was a head fake. It was a head fake. It was the picture or the poster of the Republican space ranger with a big smile on his face and his AR-15, the stereotype, right? Mm-hmm. But they're swinging around him and hitting progressives and hitting centrist Republicans. Because the social media wants you to think that they're banning extremists, white racists, neo-Nazi skinheads or whatever, and this and that. We could pin a medal around one, but we can't, can't have that conversation. But that is just my opinion, and you have a thought, and I don't want you to lose that thought. But that's where I think it's really coming from.
Well, I think we're about to find out more about how or why the government is interacting so closely with social media companies. Like, that does not seem like a healthy separation because social media is unregulated, for the most part, and the government's getting involved, saying in the name of our safety. Well, who trusts that anymore? I don't trust that. Yeah. And if you're only regulating certain people, like, this is America. Unless you're screaming fire in a crowded movie theater and there isn't one, what are we talking about? And that's been so far gone for a while now. And to be honest with you, I had an Instagram account taken down for a birthday post I put up for a friend,
I remember that.
right?
Tell me about the why on that one.
Well, if you had
Or
to
the
figure it
rationale.
out, I mean, this friend of mine and I get together in Fresno for our December birthdays whenever I go home for Christmas, and we go to the same Mexican restaurant that we love, and we have these spicy Mexican beers, and they're so good. And I wrote it in my post, and logically, some AI bot checked my post and saw me write the word Mexican, and my whole account is taken down. And there's no recourse until you run into someone who knows someone who knows someone that works in some back office at Meta, and guess what? All of a sudden you get your account back. But if you're just a regular person trying to go in and follow their recourse, there's no way to get your account back.
Yeah, there isn't.
And if people like me are having accounts taken down,
And like,
I'm sorry. Like,
Wendy's like,
I'm trying to be
Wendy's
meaner.
like
I'm trying to be more direct. I'm trying to talk about things that matter. But to be honest with you, like, I don't say stuff that's. But if they get an inkling that you're coming, you can't go head on at the beast, right? You got to make an end run, because these things are so big and heavy, and these industries that are making so much money, and big tech is one of them. The little guy has no chance, and that's historically that hasn't been America. That's
Right.
not the America I want to live in, and that's really our demise.
Yeah.
The elite power is getting so huge that you can't be quiet anymore.
I think the elites is a whole nother way with this discussion too, because they're at the end of the day they're fine. Like if they want
Right.
to say something,
And that's what politics is coming down to now. It's not Republicans and Democrats. It's elites and normal people. And then what do we do about giving people who really need help a leg up compassionately? How do you teach a man to fish, right? We're not just, if we just hand things out to people, that's not helping either. But the elites don't care. They like to keep these people down. Okay? And then the middle America, all of us that are out here working for meaningful jobs, trying to make our families better, trying to make our communities better, the elites don't care about that. They're making so much money, they don't care.
they're fine.
They're fine. And they keep wanting to make more
Right.
at the expense of all the people who got shut down during COVID.
Billions wasn't enough.
Exactly. And if you look at big pharma, big tech, and big ag, we have a real problem on our hands.
That's a
And I come from a farming family.
That's a trifecta, isn't
That's
it?
the trifecta right
Yeah.
there. That's our food supply and the way we feel. So that goes completely into our health and cancer and everything that we're seeing in America today, as far as like how unhealthy we are. Then you go to that directly goes to the big pharma, and then the way that the message is being spread, that is only certain people are allowed to talk. Like, we have a problem on our hands.
All right, let's start with the easy part. The elite class, I don't think they care either way. I think if someone poor makes some money, that's fine, but as long as it doesn't break their bank, right? Good for him, you know what I'm saying? Because, again, me talking about the elite class, there are people that will have a category for that too as cannon fodder. Oh, it's a war on the rich. It's a war on the wealthy. You know, and that category. It's a war on this. It's a war on that. And if you notice, all of the categories they mentioned, these wars don't have an end, right? The war on
Right.
terror, right? There's no end to that. The war
Right.
on
Just 'cause there's a
the
huge-
war on women, right? We're not going to run out of women. There's no end game, right?
Right.
Just kill them all.
But anything there's a huge economy built
Right.
on, there's no end, right? There's an economy built on wars and, massive defense spending. There's an economy built on our healthcare system that is an absolute wreck.
right.
But people are making money. So where does the conscious capitalism come in? That's my whole thing.
I think the elite are unaffected because even if something happens to their brand, with that kind of money, their brand and
matter.
their bottom line are completely separated.
Yeah.
Right. Like, for example, you were talking about Instagram, or whatever. You had like 19,000 followers just chilling, right? I had a Facebook handle the Option Podcast, and my viewership was up to like 24,000, which is like ridiculous. And then boom, out of nowhere, jackhammer, right? So a lot of people out there, they think it's just, oh, get over it. It's just, get another social media handle. But some people, it was a way of doing their business. And if their business isn't big enough,
Yeah.
where they're elite, where like if something happens to their business, for example, sorry, let me just start over. Brand, bottom line. Brand is how you build your reputation, how you build what you want to sell. This and that is what people look at. Bottom line is the money you make, the monetary, the shoes on your feet, the carpet on, the house over your head, the cars. So if your brand and your bottom line are connected, so if someone affects your business and now you can't make money, and now little Jimmy can't go to college or this or that, those are the people who stand to lose, and those are the people who want to speak up but can't.
Right.
Because their brand and their bottom line are affected. And when I mentioned before the elite class, they're separated. I don't know. I'll give you an example. Like Woody Harrelson, right? I love him. He said some stuff on Saturday Night Live that I actually agreed with. That people on YouTube not agree with. Again, take it or leave it. He was sent to his room, and then no one's asking him to do films and this and that, and that's messed up. But he's okay.
Yeah.
The guy lives in Hawaii next to Willie Nelson. They smoke weed every day. He's fine. So you know what I'm saying? So he's someone that can wait out that storm.
Yeah. And here's the thing.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that oppositional to him,
Right.
because
No, I don't
I
begrudge
freaking-
anybody their success.
freaking love me some Woody, dude.
Yeah, I don't begrudge anyone their success.
That's why I mentioned him.
Right? And anyone that has traveled this road and built a career, and I in fact applaud people who have gotten to the point that can say what they want. Now, I don't want anyone with bad intention, but people have different opinions. They can say what they want, and honestly, you're in a great position when you can do that.
Right.
And you're a good person, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm still hanging on to. Most of us are out here trying to be true to who we are and be good people and live in community and help each other out. I do think there's a class that is completely unrelated to us, and you and I are sitting in pretty good positions in life, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're living in a good community. We have roofs over our heads. We have food on the table. But there's a whole nother class, and that's the people I'm talking
The
about.
disappearing
Do
class.
not care, though. The ones that they have more money than they possibly know what to do with.
Right.
And they still want more, and they don't care what's going on below. They're keeping people sick.
Wow. Yep.
What are we
Actually,
normal
hold that
people
thought.
cannot. Yeah.
Eric Anderson said it's the 1% holding on to all the power and paying elected officials to change the rules for them. Eric Anderson, a former USA coach and an absolute coaching savage out of Texas, I think he's at right now. But I
Awesome.
met him. He was an amazing human being, and
That's awesome.
and wrote a book called "What to Do When You're Stopped by the Police and Knowing Your Rights" and like Fourth and Fifth Amendment. He wrote a book. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called The Conversation.
Oh, sweet.
Something black fathers have to have with their kids. It's called
Yeah.
The Conversation. But Eric, love you, and I'm glad I could plug you. But we want to, and I don't want to steer us off the cliff. I want to stay on focus. But
No,
I saw your
love
post.
I love it when people participate. That's awesome.
So you were talking about
Yeah, but he's right. It's the very protected power. People want to, congressmen want to keep their power.
Mm-hmm.
That is, K Street's just funding that, and the rest of us, the voters, we're out of that picture.
Right.
I mean, you feel so disconnected from what's going on in Washington, let alone Sacramento. The 40% of Californians are thinking about leaving. We talked about that on Undivided.
oh we're
Right? I mean, this state, you look at our coastline and then you look at what's going on here and you go, how these two things don't make sense. This should be the greatest state in America,
Right.
given what we have naturally, and it's not.
there
We're a
was
hot mess.
there was an exec from BlackRock, a recruiter, that was filmed talking about how easy it was to buy politicians.
It's gross.
And he said they actually, I remember there was a really funny line, like, he said, we bought a senator for like as little as $10,000, and I saw it on the Jimmy Dore show or whatever, and the guy who was with him, Kurt Metzger, was like, $10,000. He says we could do a GoFundMe and buy us a senator, and have the people do a GoFundMe and buy our own senator,
Yeah.
but that's the point I was trying to make, is that's the way out, right? Because again, for everyone listening, this podcast isn't about giving everybody solutions and telling you how you're supposed to behave. Wendy and our function is to, We come in with our own opinion, our own take, and we actually shape the question for you. And you, the audience, give us feedback, come up with some ideas, and that makes the world a better place. We can,
Completely.
Eric Anderson, I'm sure Sean Diggs listening to this too. We can all answer these questions together.
Yeah,
So it
that's
is our function to shape the question, the way that can be productive.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
told
called
you.
The Blue Book.
Oh,
The Talk.
cool.
That's the name of the book, guys.
All
It's
right,
called
cool.
The Blue Book, The Talk.
I'm gonna look at
Eric Anderson rocks.
Awesome.
Go ahead. Mhm.
Well, the first time I think that, or maybe the second time we did an undivided recording, I texted you guys and was like, that's what I like my dinner parties to feel like. Those conversations that friends have around a table that seem to be disappearing because people we're teaching the
'Cause
public.
you're triggered.
Everyone's triggered. Everyone's waiting to be offended. We're teaching the next generation to wait to be offended. Wait, something's going to come and it's going to trigger you, and what you can't handle it. Just get offended. Have a conversation. Politics are really just somebody's upbringing. And then if you can make friends as you get older, you make friends from different places and you learn different things. But if we can't talk to each other and share those stories about where we came from and why we think what we think, we're not getting anywhere.
Well, it starts with, oh my God, I hate to sound so obvious about it, but I have to. I guess it bears repeating. Getting big money out of politics, making ways to run for president, not as tediously financially, whatever, right? Like RFK, a guy who I've been looking at. He'll take big money. He's gonna have to take big money
You
from
have
someone.
to.
But
You can't
But
win
the cool thing
without it.
about him is he's never not been candid and open about how he feels about something.
Right.
And he's my candidate because, like, people don't like flip-floppers. I love flip-floppers. I love someone you could sit down and be like, you make them see it a different way. It's like, you know what? I changed my mind.
Well,
I see
and
it
if
your way.
they're honest about their flip-flops.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
a lot of times they just bury what they used to think.
Right?
Right? And then they come out-
Are we going to do that?
like
Are we going
that.
to talk about Dr. Hotez?
Yeah.
Right? All right. So for those of you that are not in the political world, the Dr. Peter Hotez was on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? And was talking about everyone getting vaccinated and this and that. He was on a previous podcast talking about how everyone should diet. And Joe's like, do you diet? And he's like, no. He's like, what do you eat? I had donuts today. You had donuts today? And you're telling everybody that? And it was just this like he was trying to move on and Joe wouldn't allow it because Joe was trying to, I felt like Joe was trying to help him because Joe is a generally healthy person, right?
Yeah.
But then he had RFK on the podcast, and for 3 hours, RFK might have mentioned some things that were controversial, that are disagreeable, and Dr. Vinay Prasad, who was one of the only internet scientists that I actually respect, had a rebuttal on where he thought RFK was incorrect, and that of course made all the headlines. But what didn't make the headlines is he had a response saying, hey, look, what you said about this, here's the site where I got that. What you said about this, he did this long Twitter thing, and it's like, I'd love to come on your show and talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. Of course not, you know.
doubt.
I'm not saying he's a coward, but I'm saying that scientists are not used to being debaters, and they feel like if they enter his realm of debate, that he can be wrong, but win the debate and win the audience. And I'm going to let you talk in a minute, but
No,
I have two problems with that.
Yeah.
All right, one, just because you're afraid that a guy's prepared to defend himself doesn't mean you shouldn't debate him. So just so I understand this, you don't want to debate him because he has the skill to actually defend himself, and you don't. You're a doctor. You're a scientist. You know, you're telling people, you're offering suggestions that are going to navigate the way we live our lives via mandate or in or out of court forever, for the rest of our lives, certainly, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to have a conversation?
Science has always been debate.
Yes.
Medical debate before COVID was a thing.
Yes. Well, it's
And-
called reading. We're doing
yeah.
your own research back in the day. It was called reading.
And now, when you look at the peer-reviewed process, there's holes in that thing all day long now. Where that used to be the trusted way of being like, no, this is coming from a science journal, a peer-reviewed scientific process.
Right.
And now those are all funded
Right.
and tweaked and turned, and I
Right.
don't. What do we trust anymore?
Now, for everybody listening, we are not having this discussion as medical professionals. We're talking about public policy, and we're talking about legal
Yeah.
application. And this is a situation where Wendy and I are both qualified. She's the daughter of a senator. I'm a lifelong
Assemblyman, secretary.
Assemblyman and secretary.
Assemblyman, secretary of state.
Oh, he ran for senator. Okay.
He
Right.
ran against Boxer
So,
and
so
ran for
this is
governor.
our wheelhouse more than the scientists, because we're talking about something that goes beyond the science.
Well,
And- and the-
Americans have always been able to talk about politics.
And the peer review only it just so people understand what peer review is. Peer review is when a whole bunch of doctors take like a finding or a study or data produced, they tear it apart, they debate, and they come to a conclusion whether they agree or disagree. Right? Now you can peer review a study and agree that the study is correct in its data, but if the data itself started from a poisonous tree, if it's futzed with, right? That's a conspiracy, which I'll put on the shelf.
Yeah.
But if the study itself, if the people peer reviewing don't advise the people that this study is a correlation study, like correlation is not causation, right? I'll give you an example. Like if I showed you a stat that said more people were transmitting COVID who were vaccinated than unvaccinated, right? You can't make the conclusion that vaccinated people are transmitting it more. That's correlation, which is not causation.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the same thing with and on the other end of that argument, it's the same thing with hospitalization. Because that was thrown in our face. That was the last goalpost that had to be moved. There were three goalposts, right? But the last goalpost was we're trying to keep people out of the hospitals, get vaccinated, and they showed a stat saying this percentage of people, or unvaccinated people, were higher that were getting hospitalized or whatever.
Right.
But that's not an actual study. That's data, and that's correlation, and correlation is not causation.
Right.
So on both ends of the argument, right?
Yeah.
So if someone wants to have an argument, you have to accept both those studies or not. And the reason is sample size.
Right.
Like the first study I showed you, the sample size, there are more vaccinated people, so there might be more of a chance, right? And the other study, the smaller the population, the higher the percentage.
Right.
Because there was only a handful of people that are unvaccinated. So the percentage of those people are going to be higher percentage.
Right.
Not quantity, but
Well,
like
that's
percentage.
one of the first things you look at if you ever look at
If you ever took a college
study.
course.
Yeah, you're looking at what's the sample size.
Right.
Like that's
But that's not science. That's quantitative reasoning.
Right.
Is quantitative reasoning considered science? I consider that math.
stats. I mean,
Yeah, intro to statistics,
Yeah.
right? Those are,
Yeah.
but this is why, as a general rule, they say correlation is not causation. What I disagree with is they say it should be completely ignored, and I don't think it should be completely ignored. I think it should hit an alarm bell and say, hey, okay, this is interesting. I
Well,
want to know more.
Right.
Right.
And as American people, we should be allowed to ask these questions. And the bigger thing that I'm concerned about is what has gotten at the root of we don't trust our leaders anymore. That's a real problem. But they also don't deserve to be trusted.
Yeah,
like,
well, they
All of the, you
yeah.
know, you can change your opinions over time when you find out new things.
Right.
That didn't happen. And I don't want to keep this all on the COVID thing, but COVID really knocked our trust in leadership and looking to who's going to tell me the truth, who's really here to keep me safe, or like we use that word so much, but what's really safe anymore? Like it's on us
but that's
to
why
keep
I said it has
ourselves
nothing.
safe.
Everyone's kept saying trust the science, follow the science. This had nothing to do with the science because even scientists can be bought.
Yeah.
Even scientists can, feel they have to go where their ideology and their personal politics leads them. We were talking about Dr. Peter Hotez, right?
Yeah.
And this is the guy. This is supposed to be the guy, right? And we were talking about RFK, and that's probably why or whatever. But he refused to debate him, right?
Right.
And had all kinds of excuses why. Oh, I don't want to give him a platform. It's like, no, you're not giving him a platform. He's on the Joe Rogan show. That's the biggest podcast in the world. He already has a platform. He's running for president.
Right.
So you're not giving him a platform. Right. Oh, this will turn into the Jerry Springer show. I'm like, no, it won't.
No.
Joe Rogan has had people has had debates on his podcast, and at no time did it was civil. Joe
Right.
Rogan had a cannabis argument, and Joe was as a marijuana guy, and sat there and moderated fairly, and even changed his mind on some things on cannabis. So it's not
Interesting.
like yes.
There's been a ton.
Oh, there's and this is your favorite one. Oh, false balance. Why are you going to give this one person who stands alone the same time that the other 90%? And your answer was, what 90%, right? If they're being censored.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I
So
remember
those are
now.
the three reasons, right? But listen, people, for everyone listening, the reason why I'm saying this is because there's data out there, and you pay attention to it, and you try to trust your physician, but your physician gets things from the CDC and gets it from the WHO, which, by the way, YouTube itself follows the guidelines of, which is why this is on YouTube, and we're able to do this, because everything I'm saying follows those guidelines. I actually won an argument with them. It was the first time in the history of YouTube that YouTube actually apologized to someone. They accused me of not following the guidelines, and I actually cited my sources saying I did. And YouTube, at the end of the day, they're people that are just trying to work together with everybody. They're just trying to make this an environment where everyone can share stuff. It's not like everyone's trying to make it this evil entity, but they have people that have jobs that
No, the people
they
that
got a
just-
job to
that
do
go
too.
to work there every
Yeah.
day are just good working Americans,
Yep.
from what I can tell.
Yep.
There's something
I've
though
spoken to
coming.
them, a lot of them. Yeah.
They're the people that helped you get your account back.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like common sense, critical thinking. I show up at work every day. Let me see if I can help you because you seem to be a nice guy.
Right.
You didn't deserve to be taken down. But there's something coming from the top, though, and that's who's talking. Like, that's where that federal government talking to the top of the top at
Right.
Meta, or as the Twitter files have showed us, like, that's what we're talking about. It's not the people working at the companies. They're just showing up for work and doing
Yeah.
their job. Now, you might, as you work there and you start to realize what's going on, you might want to leave.
Right.
I mean, but not everybody can do that.
But I'm glad they at least changed their policy on election fraud. Like, you couldn't say the election was rigged, and they changed that policy. They're like, you can say whatever you want. People just don't agree with it, right?
Right.
I like that they changed their policy. Like, you can talk about COVID, but please make sure that anything that you introduce as supposed fact, that it follows the guidelines of the WHO and the CDC. And a lot of people, they might have someone on their podcast, but they make sure they cover their bases and saying, hey, look, this is his opinion, and it's my position
Yeah.
to say that I follow these guidelines, and these opinions are not my own.
Right.
And when people start having opinions, and when people are warned ahead of time, because I guess their concern is, oh, people are going to go off and follow this guy and hurt themselves or whatever, which to me is galactically stupid, because that's like saying we as American people are so stupid
Well,
that we can't. Look, we
Yeah.
got plenty of stupid here, but they're saying the quantity of Americans are so stupid, or percentage,
Well-
or so stupid that we can't
we
trust
just follow
ourselves
blindly. But what are we teaching the next generation to do?
to follow blindly, to create
Right.
mass formations.
So
to-
exactly,
yeah,
it's the absolute opposite of
to
what we
create a
should
gang
be doing.
mentality.
Right.
Yeah. But
You're unsafe. Let me take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
No.
yeah. So. And I guess the overall point I was trying to make, I got a video I'm going to put up which kind of says it all. What does having a medical degree have to do with somebody being influenced by money? Right? Like Dr. Fauci, who had this whole thing, right now if he has investments in Pfizer,
Yeah.
and he's going to get he's retired, but he's afforded royalties up to $150,000 a year for the rest of his life and his family. As long as the product is still up,
I mean, conflict of interest.
which who knows, booster after booster.
Right.
If this becomes a yearly thing, he and his family, and his family after that are set for life. So, they are not allowed. They're not obligated to indulge their investments under the policy, because he went to a hearing and they strapped his behind in a chair under oath, and they're like, are you getting money from whatever? And he's like, I'm not required to answer that under the whatever, and this and that.
Why is
And they're
he
like, I
required
think
to
it was
answer
Rand
that?
Paul. He said, so that's a yes.
Call
You
it
know,
like you see it.
yeah. So, but
Yeah, I don't know why they're not required to disclose that, because as members of Congress, as members of the State House, you are required to disclose all of that.
Well, they're not
Why?
under whatever. Well, I think because the people that pass the laws are also influenced by money.
For sure. And they're supposedly filling out, I've seen those forms. They
Right.
fill out these forms, but they're all making money. Their husband's investing or their wife's like they're all making money on stuff they know is going to happen.
I mean, you're trying to assume nobility in politics, and at the same time, you're citing mistrust. So we gotta come to a coming to Jesus moment here, right? Like even right now, stock trader bans is not passed. It's introduced in legislation, meaning that you cannot be married to someone who works on Wall Street that has insider trading or general trading, because you're a legislator. And what you can do, to make money, you can introduce bills, right?
No, that's not
to
okay.
introduce bills, right? And then the stock market sees this person's introducing a bill, and they're married to someone or whatever, so they start selling high or buying low on that. And if the bill never passes, whoever knew the bill was going to fall on its face, or whoever knew the bill was actually going to pass, is ahead of the game and has made a pile of money.
Right.
So you
So
can't,
again,
Republican Dan Crenshaw, he's like, I don't see a problem with it. Democrat Nancy Pelosi said, I don't see a problem with that. And they're both, there's a Democrat,
Right, no,
there's a
it's on
Republican,
both sides.
and they're both wrong.
They're both wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
We agree on that.
So back to the science thing.
Yeah.
What does having a medical degree have to do with somebody? Because everyone's like, oh, scientists don't make a lot of money. You put them out. You're putting them out there when they're not making a lot of money. I'm like, the reason why they're out there is because they're not making a lot of money and they're looking for an opportunity. Our guy, Dr. Hotez. I'll tell you what. For everybody listening, I could talk another 5 minutes, but this speaks for itself. My man Matt Orfula made this 5-minute video, and I'll get permission later, but there's a live version, so DJ, spin that. Let's see.
A lot of shared company.
All right, so let's do our countdown first.
You know, one of the things that we're not hearing a lot about is the unique potential safety problem of coronavirus vaccines.
And then something changed.
Any vaccine released by emergency use authorization by the FDA is an outstanding vaccine.
J&J's vaccine has a risk of life-threatening blood clots.
When you hear the beep, that's the sound of safety.
So don't overthink it. They're both really.
I mean,
good
should we keep going?
They're all really good vaccines. Get vaccinated now.
You gotta call now.
If you wait, it's going to be really too late to protect your child.
If this was your child, what happens next could make it the worst day of your life.
So even though COVID poses zero threat to healthy children,
Vaccinate your children.
Do the right thing. Be safe and not sorry.
I'm strongly recommending for adolescents to get their 2 doses of vaccine and fully immunized after those 2 doses.
Advanced technology that can help save lives.
This is going to be a long-lasting vaccine. A long-lasting vaccine.
A few moments later.
We're seeing that 2 doses is not holding up well for emergency room visits. It's not holding up well for hospitalizations.
Here we go again.
Everyone's going to need a booster. You need that 3rd immunization.
Triple the amount.
Get that 3rd immunization. The 2 mRNA vaccines were always a 3-dose vaccine. The 2 mRNA vaccines were
There's
always
no
a
way this stays
3-dose
on the
vaccine. I've always said this is a 3-dose vaccine. This is a 3-dose vaccine.
But I'm not done yet.
That 3rd immunization, the problem is it's not holding up. So we may have to look at sort of innovative solutions.
Oh God, not this again.
A 4th immunization, just to keep them. Keep
Look,
them
you
going.
saw Don
The
Levitt's
country
face.
Going. We have to consider some out-of-the-box things. A 4th immunization.
He goes, oh
4th
boy.
immunization. Get that 2nd boost. A 2nd boost to keep the country going. I've made that recommendation. A 4th immunization.
But I'm still not done.
1 semester later.
Unfortunately, the numbers are starting to trend up again. So the hospitalizations are up. And so the most important message that I have this morning is get your new bivalent booster.
Willie and Lise were saying they got their booster, and I was like, oh, I need to get mine. And then I found out they're talking about the 3rd shot. And Is that the bivalent, or is it the fourth booster, or does it matter? Like,
Don't worry so much about the number of.
There's no wrong way to use it.
You have to get it.
Double or triple stack them.
The new bivalent one is doing a much better job. You have to get a booster.
Yeah.
You need to get this new bivalent booster. That bivalent booster for COVID.
But does everyone ages 12 and older need a booster?
The answer is yes. And by the way, if you're over 50 and have gotten 2 boosters and more than 2 to 4 months out, you're going to need a third booster as well, a 5th immunization.
5.
I don't think we're going to need an annual booster like flu.
He said 5.
Dr. Hotez supports yearly boosters, just like flu.
But I'm still not done.
It looks as though the boosters are not holding up quite as well as we'd like. And I think our thinking is going to change, and that what's going to happen is every few months we may need another booster.
Perfect results each and every time.
We just could not overcome that massive disinformation campaign. These fake concepts of herd immunity and discrediting masks.
Well, Dr. Hotez, you are a national treasure.
It is picking
he's a national treasure.
Like never seen.
Dr. Peter Hotez, that was extremely informative.
Disinformation that you're hearing, that kids are fine, it's nonsense. Kids need to get that vaccination.
You healthcare workers have been our saviors.
Watch out for that misinformation.
Dr. Peter Hotez is probably one of the smartest people on this topic.
If
He's
you
a
haven't
national
gotten your
treasure.
5 and up vaccinated yet, now's the time to do that.
Dr. Peter Hotez, thank you for saving the world.
They also support giving that third immunization for the 12 to 17-year-olds. People have to feel safe.
Dr. Hotez, you are a voice of reason.
Take down the fake information.
Look at your face.
Our hope is to vaccinate our way through this. Make certain that everybody's vaccinated, including their kids. That's the single most important thing right now the American people have to do.
Dr. Peter Hotez is a person that we like to go to.
Oh my
for
God!
The sort of
I didn't mean to do the whole thing, but
It's entertaining.
it reads like a novel.
Monkeypox is a global emergency.
Oh no!
And it's accelerating among a specific social network of men who have sex with men, not because it's sexually transmitted.
Monkeypox is sexually transmitted, almost exclusively.
That's CDC.
Before we let you go, we have to stop.
For YouTube purposes, we have to
a lot of MSNBC
make sure we
viewers
tell
who
the
have
truth
watched
here.
you constantly for the last 3 years or so, and have come to trust you. I don't know if they fully appreciate what you have done.
So we might not put that in the edit,
Yeah.
but of the podcast. But if we do, I want to let everybody know for YouTube purposes, the vaccines are safe and effective, and they do prevent severe severity from infection, not severe disease. In the words, I want to get the wording right. Severity from infection and hospitalization and even death. So safe and effective, people. Make sure we know that, and make sure the opinions here are shared of everybody. But we got to get the facts straight in accordance to the CDC and the WHO. So, but in case we don't have that in the edit, I wanted to just read this. This is Peter Hotez in 2020. Okay. We don't do EUAs, Emergency Use Authorizations for vaccines. It's a lesser review. It's a lower quality review. And when you're talking about vaccinating a large chunk of the American population, that's not acceptable. That's
Then
2020, which, by the way, gentlemen, that's COVID misinformation, okay? Because that's not true. But
what
that's
month
him.
Did he say that?
That's him in April or May. No, 2020.
Oh wow! Yeah. So after.
Well, it's not about the month as much as it's about the year. He leans heavily left. You like to think scientists are neutral, but he leans left, and Trump was president back then. And if you remember when Donald Trump had this thing called Operation Warp Speed,
yeah,
everyone on the left was like, "I'm not getting that vaccine." If it's him, I'm not getting the vaccine. Kamala Harris said, "I'm not getting that." Joe Biden said, "I don't know." Oh, well, we'll see, because everyone was saying, "We'll see" when he was the president, and then
we flipped.
When there was a changing of the guard,
right? Then our opinions changed. See,
his opinions changed. His medical opinion changed. He didn't. Let me ask you just a personal question. Everybody listening, does that sound like someone who examined the science more and changed his mind? No. He flip flopped.
Right.
His spine is flexible and it bends a whole bunch of ways. And let's just call it what it is. He won't debate RFK, and he said he'll debate Joe Rogan. So you'll go against the pothead comedian, right? But you won't go against RFK, and and the problem is twofold. One, he knows that this video is out there, and we're gonna ask him, and he's got to be held into account
and
for what
RFK
changes.
knows his stuff.
Yes. Oh, the second thing is Joe Rogan house him too.
Oh, for sure. No doubt. No doubt.
So I don't see it. I don't see how there's a win for any of that. But here's the point I was trying to make about this pandemic, and it's something. At this point, it's not going to get me in trouble. I'm all right. I'm good. I mean, we got the show. We got Undivided. But the thing I was trying to point out was they weaponized doctors, good doctors. I'm not Hotez, but good doctors. Your family physician, your people trying to do real work at the CDC, people at the FDA who are, the two heads of the FDA quit.
Yeah.
Because of the policy they were trying to push on vaccinating children. He quit. Yeah. So, let's just, I don't know, for this episode, let's just hope the facts make me survive this. But if it doesn't, I'm glad I'm on this thing long enough to say, we're here to shape the question. Yeah. I have my own opinion. Wendy has her own opinion. But for you to never be put in a position where you can't ask the question, then we're out of business, because our function is for us to have our own opinions and shape the question. We can answer those questions together.
Yeah. Who is allowed to ask the question?
Yep.
As Americans, we should all be allowed to ask the question.
I mean, in this country. Yeah. In the United States of America.
Do it on whatever platform you have access to. And if somebody, but that needs equal access on so many fronts. We don't have that.
Right.
And that's not just a conservative liberal thing. I mean, nobody's starting line's the same.
So enter the show Undivided. It's a show on Binge TV, right?
Yeah, Binge Networks.
Binge Networks. And we're working out some contracts. We're trying to spread the love on that.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's me, it's Wendy Jones, and in this crazy surprise, Ashley Clark, who was with the production team, where I thought it was just going to be you and me, and maybe like a moderator, and we can, answer some of these questions and this and that.
I kind of dropped that one on you, but you
but it changed our whole format. Like ours is more of like a periodical format because it was just the two of us.
Yeah.
But when you got three people in the room, then I don't know. It's colorful.
I like it, and I like the different generations. Ashley's a little younger than both of us. She's got a ton of great opinions, and she's a passionate person, and she's somebody that I've seen be highly underutilized, and I love to see good people grow. And I called her that morning and said, I've got a gut feeling you're supposed to be on this show. And she, in 45 minutes, pretty much polished it up and picked a topic and got on there.
It had to have felt, but the format had to have felt so unorganic for her. Hi, I'm Ashley, whatever, and she's like this. In her mind, she's like, this is silly. We gotta loosen up a little bit, and it was something you and I were better equipped for at that time because we were.
But look how fast she's come along.
Yeah, I gotta give it to her, man.
Yeah, I mean, she's
so good for America, dude.
Yeah.
I got a song
kids.
for her too, right? We got a song. I got songs for everybody.
Yeah, she's
and hers is la 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 la. I'm gonna start a fight. That's hers.
She's a great coach.
Yeah, she is a good coach
and a great person.
Yeah, but Undivided. I didn't want to share the episodes with my peers because the production was so lumpy that some of my people, in my mind, I don't get a second chance to make that first impression.
I would agree.
But the material was raw, and it was unpolluted. It was pure.
Yeah.
The segment I did called "They're Fine."
Yeah.
That meant something.
For sure. And you wrote a great blog on that.
Yeah.
And I will also say that as we grow into these things, that I think they're getting better and better. And you do have to, we're starting from a very organic position, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, we're leveling up.
Yeah, we are. Every episode's a better version of itself. And you think about every big television show, every big podcast, how it looked in the beginning. Like Joe Rogan had like a fleshlight thing or something, like some weird flashlight, and it was just beaming up, and they look like a bunch of ghosts or whatever. It looks so silly.
I mean, I tell my kids all the time, like my younger kids think that everybody that their older siblings were always good at school or volleyball or whatever it is. And like you have to start somewhere. You have to stick your neck out there, and you have to be willing to be not sloppy, but you have to be willing to take a chance and not be afraid to mess something up and then let it evolve from there. And I feel like Lord knows there's a lot on my plate.
Yeah.
And I get up every day and go, I'm going to do the next right thing and figure this thing out. And it's coming along.
But I did want to say that we were talking about like the weaponizing people in politics and this and that. And the reason why you couldn't have a discussion was because of that weaponization.
Yeah.
You don't care about doctors. You're not respecting the science. When to me, the science, it was a head fake. Just like I said, the head fake wasn't against censoring Republicans. The head fake was censoring people to the left who are combining with centrist right on ideas that they can agree on.
Right. Which used to be
Second Amendment, we can handle that later, but we have something bigger at stake: free speech and being on the forefront of possible messing with Russia, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a proxy war against Russia, and we're using the Ukrainians as cannon fodder. But that was what talking about what I was talking about before. Couldn't have a discussion on Facebook with people because they kept making it about the scientific studies say the science, and I'm like, I'm not talking about the science, guys. I'm talking about the legal. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about possible fraud. I'm talking about science and how it applies to public policy, right? Finland has doctors. Sweden has doctors. Cuba has doctors, just like us. Yeah. We're not even in medicine and science. We're not even ranked top 10 in the world. And are you trying to say they're not following the science? No. They had a public policy that was different.
Yeah.
And that was the argument I was trying to make. It was never about following the science. To me, it was about public policy and trusting the scientists to do the right thing.
But as things became apparent through science, those things were not. We didn't adjust.
No.
Why wasn't there an adjustment through COVID policy? Why did we have to stick
the UK
in one place and just beat this fear-based mentality into people when, yes, in March of 2020, everyone was cool with staying home and taking one for the team and let's band together and beat this thing.
Right.
But as we found out more and we were still being told to stay scared and stay home, that's where the trust was lost with me.
Right.
Right.
Do you know in California there's still people driving in their car alone
with masks?
I
saw one yesterday. My 16-year-old, it's his favorite thing to watch for.
Yeah.
We get a good laugh. I'm sorry.
Your 16-year-old's like
there he goes. And yeah, I mean it's wild.
I don't laugh at those people. I actually laugh at juniors players who walk around arrogantly. When they walk around, when they strut around and they lose and they start crying. I'm a sadist. I'm like, look at that. Where's that girl? Oh, wait, oh, there goes another one right there. I'm like one of those guys. Like, if you're gonna sit there and act like your guy gets the volleyball and you lose, when you lose, I hope you cry your little eyes out. But that's just the guilty pleasure in me. But the mask isn't even about. The mask is a different kind of satire.
Well,
it's irony. It's a mixture of irony, ridicule, and with a twist of parody.
And a little elitism to go back to Long Beach State.
But yes, but the point I was trying to make, they're not even wearing it properly, right? Like you can make an argument for a mask, for an N95, right?
Right.
You wear it properly. When I see some people, and I'm not categorize Asians again, I see an Asian wearing an N95, nose, mouth, boom. This person's just trying to protect themselves, so I'm not judging them. No. They're a gangster. They whatever they did, they studied something that they believe in, right? Yeah. That goes but like I'm talking about like one of the people that wear like the thing over but over their nose. There's no air on the side, and this and that, and they're doing it for what maybe reasons even beyond COVID. That might be a flu. Right. That might be I have something that through aerosol or whatever. But when you see someone with like one of those like rob a bank, piece of cloth thing. Give me all your money. Give me your wallet and your
it's
watch.
down here.
That's the point you was trying to make. That's what it's done to us.
Well, and I don't.
That's what it's done to us.
It's a virtue signal, for one, which I'm
Dog
over
whistle,
those,
yeah.
over the virtue signaling, and two, what it's done psychologically to kids. I'm telling you, if you would have given me a mask to cover my face at 13, 14, 15, I would have taken it. Like, it's not okay. We have to be okay to show up in the world as who we are. And people do not realize what giving kids masks did to them.
How many kids?
And nobody else.
I got a question for everybody listening. And this is an honest, real question, no matter what side of the argument you're on, because it sounds like me and Wendy are just kind of like circle jerking and agreeing on this. But how many kids out there do you see wearing an N95? Kids. Kids are required to wear masks at school, right? You see some kids wearing cloth masks. You see some kids like kind of tying the surgical ones or whatever and this and that. How many children did you see in school that or going whatever to the store? Children. I'm just using children, not old people, not adults, not someone with a big head like mine. How many people how many people out there do you see kids having an N95?
I don't think a lot.
I can't remember any.
Yeah.
That includes
right. No, I mean, and when my kids, I got to the point where, because here's the thing, lifelong rule follower. Okay, that's what's changed for me over the last couple of years. Lifelong rule follower, and I got to the end of that where we were still wearing masks, and I would get out to go to the grocery store, and I'm like, you know what? I'm over it. We're fine. Something in me is telling me we're fine. Okay. My kids were so bothered by my. I'm like, look, guys, we're just going to walk through here and I'm going to smile at everybody and everything's going to be okay.
Right.
They're afraid of being like, my mom what's she doing? Like, she's so embarrassing. She's not following the rules. And I'm like, no, you know what? It's time. We're done. But they were so dogmatic. This had been drilled into them. I'm like, you guys.
So true.
Fine. And I'd go, if you want to wear your mask, wear your mask. I'm not wearing mine.
No. And like I said, I wasn't trying to judge someone in a car driving by themselves.
But I'm
just saying, if you're gonna wear the mask, wear it. That's how I judge you or judge them.
Yeah.
If you're gonna wear it, wear it.
Right.
If you're gonna choose to wear it in the car without, I'm just saying it doesn't. Yeah. If it makes them feel good, cool. If I'm in an environment. Let's say I'm in an environment where like they're just people where like everyone in the room is wearing a mask, right? Like every single person in the room is wearing. I'll wear one not because I think it works, not because I disagree with or I agree with their philosophy, because it makes them comfortable around me, and it's like every single person is wearing it. I'm not going to be like Mr. Rebel. So it's one of those things where I think I would do it for a short period of time because I just have trouble breathing in it.
Yeah.
For me to wear it properly, I can't breathe in it. I just can't. And a lot of people listening, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people out there that share that with me, but go ahead.
Well, I just worry about the fear-based herd mentality that we were getting to, because you don't realize over time what that does to a society.
Right.
Okay. Like,
right.
When we started being okay and coming out of this thing and science was telling us differently, and yet we were being forced to stay scared. If you followed that stuff all day long and they weren't changing their tune, even though we knew things were changing, it's like this societal gaslighting that's not okay.
It was a mass formation. Yeah. It was a lot of things that identify with prerequisite to totalitarianism.
Completely.
And
yet that's the stuff that gets called conspiracy theory.
Right. Well, I'm gonna say something that'll get me in trouble with YouTube. Okay. Here's how I guided my system. If I saw billionaires wearing masks, we're in deep doo-doo. we are in deep trouble. If you see billionaires wearing masks on private jets, then you know it's real. We are in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah.
No, but
that's not happening.
No.
Just like
but once again, for YouTube purposes, masks worked when they worked, and vaccines are safe and effective and prevent hospitalizations and severe disease and death.
Good job.
So 60-second question. We got to bang out some of these. Your turn. Ready? Independent media. One of our fan questions: has independent media won the war on COVID? I'll go first.
Go for it.
because I'm not sure what this actual question is, but I'll answer the best way I know how. All right, here we go. All right, so independent media was allowed to say things. A lot of independent media was censored, but there were some people that were too big to censor, and they were ridiculed, and they were called out for it, very much like Joe Rogan, very much like Jimmy Dore, Savvy Sab's podcast. I'm just highlighting them. Kim Iverson, who was formerly with The Hill, who still, well, I actually have the coolest video ever I wanted to play later, that stayed vigilant, lost viewership, probably lost monetization, lost friends, lost family. But at the end of the day, they stayed vigilant. And when mainstream media finally started coming around with like, maybe this didn't come from a bat, maybe it did come from this. When they said, okay, this no longer transmits or whatever. And this, and CDC and WHO, when they started coming around, those people who are still around didn't say, I told you so, even though there is a level of bitterness. But I remember Rogan saying we have to be able to forgive, because if I was armed with the same information they were, I'd feel just as passionate. That's what I wanted to say about that. Go ahead, Wendy.
Well, I think, overall mainstream media has helped create independent media, because they have towed such a line that has protected that elite class, and that's what came out through COVID, but it's coming out in so many different arenas, and that's how you're getting these mass, these audiences for Rogan, for Tucker Carlson, for the other Jimmy Dore, the people that they have a platform, they say things honestly, and their integrity's there, and you can't say that about mainstream media anymore. So independent media is there because the integrity more and more is in their hands and not the mainstream, and that's a really big problem in America. Like, the lack of leadership and who to believe, and what are we supposed to think? Like, I don't trust anything anymore. So
look at you with 5 seconds left. Look at that. Just banging it out. I promise to actually shut up for a whole minute and let you talk. This is why I got the clock, because I got people saying, you got to shut up for a whole minute and let this girl talk. So I'm like, okay, I'll show you. Do you appreciate what I was talking about before about the Republican head fake? Those people labeled Jimmy Dore a right-winger. Yeah. And he's left to the left to the left. He is same-sex marriage, abortion, anti-war, free speech. He is a classic lefty. Medicare for all, education reform, right. Black lives, every life matters. He is a Joe Rogan. They labeled as a right-winger when he's never voted Republican in his life. And he's the same guy that said if Michelle Obama ran, he'd vote for her, right? He said these people whose vote is not for sale are being labeled as right-wingers. Yeah. And they're spreading information to people and letting me know, and our audience know that your vote is not owed to anybody.
Right.
Oh, spoiler candidate. No, these people don't owe you their vote. Mm-mm. What the hell have you done for them to make you owe them their vote? Yeah. So sorry.
They just think they're entitled. There's certain last names in this country that think they're entitled. And I keep getting hung up on the Kennedy thing because RFK, I do hold outside.
Isn't that ironic?
It is so ironic because that is American royalty. The Kennedys, the Clintons, the Bushes, and you're talking about...
No, but as long as all the other Kennedys denounce him...
Right, then we're
okay.
Good. Right?
Yeah, he's an outsider.
And that's the truth of it is, like, politics has gotten confused. Like, nobody really knows what is right and left anymore.
You know who else was pro free speech and anti-war? The two other Kennedys that matter, JFK and RFK Sr.
Yeah,
I mean that's what those are class. I call those classic liberals.
Right.
They're free speech and anti-war.
Yeah.
So, because they were silenced during that era. Yeah. Well, not just. I mean. Boy, talk about being silenced the classic way, huh?
Just no kidding.
In public, in front of with everybody watching. It's just sick and, uncomfortable. Whatever. We're gonna see an uncomfortable movie tomorrow, so let's just get warmed up. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. Question number 2. In this day and age, should there still be an electoral college? Now we explored that a little bit. And you go first.
Well, I think, the way I started it when we talked about this on Undivided was that I'm always very careful when we're going to change something in American public policy that's that fundamental, that we really are careful about what we're changing. And I do understand the logic, because it does feel weird in this day and age when everything is so technologically advanced that we can count every vote, and you see when someone wins the popular vote and yet they don't win the electoral. It's a big, there's a cognitive dissonance there that doesn't make sense. However, the way that the population is spread out in this country, and you got to that point, it's hard being a Californian, you know, like sometimes it doesn't feel like your vote counts in California. So I don't want to get to that point.
Yeah, right.
I don't have a definitive answer on whether we should abolish it or not. I'm not there yet.
Right. And again, 5 seconds early. We got to wait for the horn, girl. And all right, cool. So my turn. Until they find this a situation where Middle America, Texas, all the Midwestern people are properly represented, even though the number of them is fewer than the people who are on both coastal areas, right? The people that are trying to decide their fate, the only time they even see those people is the plane flying over them from New York to LA, from New Jersey to whatever, from Florida to wherever, you know, assuming they're not going overseas. So there has to be this level where the majority still wins, but at the same time, the majority that's close enough is still represented, right? Consider in the last election, right? Donald Trump got 74 million votes. Joe Biden got 81 million votes. Donald Trump, absent of Biden, actually got the most votes in history. And any other election, he would have won, except this one that got 81 million votes. So it's one of those situations where the majority should win, but we're not talking like this huge skew in percentage, right?
No.
We're not.
We are a very closely divided country.
You don't look at a Mack truck and look at a bus and say, okay, I'd rather get hit by the bus and not the Mack truck because the bus looks smaller. They both qualify as big enough, and people's voices are big enough where the Electoral College has to count for something. You know, it has to count for these people who have their own way of living. You know, like think about gun control, right? Gun control in Chicago shouldn't be the same thing as gun control in Montana.
No.
Those people hunt for a living. Those people, you know, there's a slower police response time in an area where you're far from where you might need help. Self-protection and the Second Amendment means something to those people.
And people are moving all over this country.
You said that too, yeah.
To live with like-minded people.
Right.
Right? I mean, they're on the move.
Right.
And as states rights, and I think you have a question on, we've talked about that a little bit, is like, you know, what is decided on a state level, and then how do people move to somewhere where there are more people that think like them? I don't know that that's necessarily a healthy thing. I really do appreciate, I like healthy debate. I want to live in a place where people are critically thinking, but I don't want everyone to think like me.
I want to live in a place where wherever you are, wherever you're living, we can say, hey, it's a free country.
Yeah.
That's anything else.
Don't be
to
an
me
elitist.
is coffee house crap.
Don't be an elitist, and don't be a victim. And I'm cool with that conversation.
All right, here's another question. Wow, should it be up to the states to determine same-sex marriage? I'll go first. All right, here we go. I'm jumping. When the Supreme Court ruled about abortion or whatever being illegal, when that was federal, it was up to the states to decide what they wanted to do. And a lot of the Democrats and people on the left thought it was segue, like, oh, you know, same-sex marriage is next, and then interracial marriage is next. And it's this whole like fear thing that they thought possibly an imaginary problem and not a real one that was going to come with that. Now, here's what I'm saying. Same-sex marriage should be federal everywhere in the United States. Same-sex weddings, saying to a church that they have to do that, that's where I kind of draw the line. I think church and state is separate for a reason. I think churches should be allowed to do what they want. And frankly, I'm disappointed and flabbergasted by any gay couple that wants to be married in an institution that is collectively saying that they don't want them, right? I'm not getting into biblical verse because biblical verse is never even mentioned in the Bible. Jesus mentioned it once about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And Sodom and Gomorrah was not about homosexuality as a foundation. It was about the law of hospitality, of you not taking advantage of your guests and your guests not taking advantage of you, right? Yeah. And these people that are Bible thumping think you want to believe everything in the Bible. It's just, man, sit your hypocritical ass down, man. Sit your behind down, right? Because the book of Leviticus says you can't wear wool, right? You can't, if this shirt I'm wearing, I'm supposed to be put to death, right? You can't eat shellfish, all right? You're at a restaurant, you eating lobster, you eating shrimp, you eating crab, you're a born-again Christian, you're a hypocrite, right? You work on Sunday. The book of Exodus says you'll be put to death if you're working on Sunday. So it's not like, back then, I could sell my daughter. I got a 6-year-old I could sell into slavery. How much you want for her, right? That's legal. That's in the Bible. What are you talking about? Sit your hypocritical behind down with that. But for me, I guess I'm a bigot. Call me a bigot. I think churches should be able to do whatever they want because that's their institution. But marriage, having a license that allows them to be under the same insurance plan, having them allow them to consummate their matrimony in the way they see fit, being allowed to be in charge of healthcare proxies as they get older, inheritance. Oh, you're not married to that person. This whole stupid piece of paper that says you're married is stupid to begin with. But they're going to have rules that give them legal benefits of being married. Gay people should have the exact same rights as everybody else. That was 2 minutes. Sorry.
You're all good. You actually made the distinction that I was.
Yeah, it might take you 30 seconds for this one.
Well, because I do think there's a difference between contracts that are, governmentally organized and faith-based sacramental marriage, right? I mean, and I think we live in a time where people, again, we're teaching through this, gender ideology and the discussion there. We're teaching people that everybody has to accept you or something's wrong. Be comfortable enough with who you are and be who you are. And I don't ever want people feeling shameful or like they're wrong to be who they are. But everybody is not always going to agree with you. Be comfortable. And yes, I do think that on a federal level, I'm fine with same-sex marriage.
Yeah, do whatever you want.
And if you belong to a church that doesn't want to do that, belong to that church. And if you don't belong to that church.
And bakeries, just give them a cake. Give them a goddamn cake, man. Bake them a cake. Don't be like, I'm a Christian, I ain't baking you no cake.
Yeah, I'm not into the judgment
stop that
thing.
Nonsense.
I'm just not into the judgment thing.
No, but
no shame-based living, no judgment. But at the same time, be a good person and you can't shame other people because it's working both ways. If you paid attention to what went on at Dodger Stadium, like that was with the sisters of the...
What happened?
You didn't...
Dodger Stadium? Educate me, educate our audience.
Now we got to look up sisters of... This was in the... for Pride Month, right? And this is what I'm trying to figure out is when did... being inclusive, because we have made such gains. We've made so many gains. I have lots of friends that...
Oh, sisters of perpetual indulgence.
Indulgence. Okay? Like that group is there to shame people who believe a certain thing, that follow a certain faith.
Right.
And indulgence is not a good thing.
Indulgence and being honored are kind of kissing cousins, though.
Indulgence in what?
Indulgence and being honored, right? They're being honored at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, so no, it was a tragedy.
She said a tragedy.
It's the stuff that they perpetuate. When I'm saying be a good person, like do things that make the world better. They're not doing things that make the world better. They're making fun of people. When you go all the way down the rabbit hole of indulgence, you are not a happy person. You are not making the world better. You are not going to create a community that is better.
Right. Let's take a look at this. Oh, let's close that. The honor took place more than an hour before the first pitch. Dodger Stadium was relatively empty when the civil rights activists took the field, but those in the seats gave the sisters loud cheers and applause when they were announced. The Dodgers community, hero award, blah, blah, blah. So they painted a different picture of what it was. And look, you and me had a discussion because I'm from New York, and I go to the Gay Pride Parade every year.
Yeah.
And I watched coverage of the LA Pride Parade, and I don't know if this is a regional thing, but the difference to me, and I've been here for 7 years in LA, the difference between the one in New York and the one in LA, the one in New York celebrates your differences. And the one in LA highlights your differences.
Okay.
So highlighting your differences leads to other paths. It can be celebrated, but it also can be this false embracement of unfounded hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I believe this and I'm better than you because I
Right.
believe this. You
Yeah.
know, where in New York's the word celebrate is pretty specific.
Yeah.
It's pretty explicit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm straight, you're gay, let's have fun. Let's
Amen.
let's twirl, let's do your thing. You
Yeah.
know, let's shake your bond. Oh, put that away. You took my eye out, you know, but it's all in fun.
Right.
And I don't want to sound like I'm embracing some unfounded hierarchy, but I've always found the New York Pride Parade better than the one in LA because the jokes and the humor. Like
No, I
someone
like
wearing
that.
an outfit, you're just like, oh, like that straight guy go, oh, and the gay people are laughing because they know his straightness can't handle it. It's not bigoted. It's these differences where we allow ourselves to laugh together,
Yeah.
laugh at each other together, right? You know why? Because Dave Chappelle said empathy is not gay or transgender. Empathy is bisexual. It must work both ways. So once New York kind of got its story straight, from the 70s, from the late 70s to the 80s, and surviving all kinds of stuff. Then the empathy and it went from tolerance to empathy to celebration, and that's the world I'd like to think.
Well, and how do
we can
people
live in.
understand each other better, right? I mean, we have to be exposed to certain things, but we don't have to have things crammed down our throats and say that one is better than the other.
Nope.
Right? I mean, there's not some hopscotch game where things used to be legitimately bigoted.
Yeah.
And we have made, and I don't think that we're showing the progress that has been made.
Right.
Like, we're not highlighting that. And yes, as there always, as a human race, there's always improvements that can be made. People can always, this is my concept, people can always be better, right? But we can't ignore the progress that's been made. And the other problem I have is that why are we taking sexuality down to the age that kids don't need to be talking about this stuff, right?
I don't think kids should be talking about sex, period.
The parade that used to be an adult, you know, people weren't bringing their 5-year-olds out in the way that they're encouraging people to do it now. We're talking about stuff to 5, 7, 9-year-olds that's not part of their world yet.
Well, to me,
why are we doing that?
Well, to me, it's about
teach your kids to be kind.
Let's take the gay and straight thing out of it for a minute.
Yeah.
And then reapproach this. If I'm at a parade and it looks strip jointy, I would have a problem with my children being a part of that. If it were, let's say I have a teenage girl and it was all boys and she likes boys, but they're out there and they're in G-strings and and flashing junk and all that stuff, or just doing stuff that's sexually inappropriate for straight people, I might have a problem with that. So now take that and enter the whole gay thing.
Okay.
So the bigotry goes away. Being bigoted against gay people goes away because you have a general objection to it if that were a bunch of straight people doing it.
Right.
So if, to me, my standard is if it's too strip jointy, I'm a hang out. Look. I'm not like one of those guys that like keep me away from that and keep my Christian wife and my Christian children, and none of us are gonna be. No, I'm gonna send my kid home. There's certain parties. Come on, guys, be real. I'm so glad we're covering this because I just get to say this to the camera. Be real. There are certain things you want your kids that don't want your kids to do that you ain't. That's not a deal breaker for you, right? 3 things I don't want my kid to do. All right, you ready?
Yep.
My kid ain't joining the army. I joined the army. I had a good time. I had the time of my life. I saw the G.I. Joe movies. I always wanted to be a soldier, and I'm a Gulf War vet, and I got a lot of hardware back there that says I'm a better shot than Oswald. All right. Study theater. The time of my life. That was the only way I was actually going to survive college, to do something that I liked or whatever. I don't know nobody. My daughter's useless freaking degree and having college loans to you 70 years old to pay for a degree you can't even use to work. No. Coaching volleyball. Hell no. My kid's not going to be no volleyball coach. I don't even want her to be a player. Right now she's a tennis player, right? So there's certain things where you tell your kid, all right, it's time for you to go home. And they're like, are you coming? I'm like, nah, I'm gonna hang for a little bit. That's reality. Let's just be real. So The bigotry comes from that person's personal feelings towards that sexuality because he has a problem with homosexuals.
Yeah.
And then the other category, no, this is the Wendy category. No, this is sexuality, period.
Yeah.
Straight or gay.
Yeah.
This is not
I don't
right
want
for
that
my
pushed
kids,
on my kid.
and I ain't gonna try that.
Yeah.
And maybe for me too, right?
Yeah.
So to not narrow down this argument to some false dichotomy where there's only two ways to go, shapes the question that we, the Option Podcast, Jason and Wendy and the audience can answer together.
Yep.
That's real, baby.
As long as people will listen and not get offended in the first 3 words that
As
come out of
long
someone's
as this podcast survives not getting cut.
canceled. There's that too, for sure.
We are a one-stop shop, people. We got everything covered right here, right now. So next question. I gotta actually pick up my kid at 2:40 at 3 o'clock. So
Yeah,
we're
that
we're
sounds
there.
about right. I told my kids, I said, Jason's podcasts always go a couple hours, so.
All right, so this one we don't need a whole minute. We could do a combined minute on this one because it's a sensitive topic, but we got to talk about it anyway. I'll go first on this one. Should Ukraine be allowed to join NATO? And the answer is absolutely not. NATO, the national whatever treaty organization, was specifically designed to combat Russia and protect other people against Russia and gang up on Russia if Russia misbehaves. And the more countries that join NATO, the more Russia feels threatened. The more Russia feels threatened, the closer we are to World War III. So no.
Well, that was a darn good argument, Jay. I do not trust this Ukraine thing any farther than I could throw it. Like, it is the amount of money we are spending there and the lack of clarity on what we're achieving is, that just got my gut.
Yeah.
It's not good.
There's
It's
a
not
whole,
good.
dude, there's
I
a
don't
whole,
trust.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't trust it. And
I don't either.
And I feel like there's so many stories out there, and we're creating so much fake news to keep people from paying attention to what's really going on. And what's going on between America, Russia, and Ukraine is one of the things we should be paying attention to. And there's all this other stuff that they're like, no, look over here.
There got to be a part 4 for that one, because we can talk about money missing. We can talk about is the foreign aid going there. We can ask, does Ukraine have a Nazi problem with the Azov Battalion? They have 2,600 soldiers that have SS symbols on their thing, right? Yeah. And it's one of those things where Democrats now are I guess liberals are just not liberals, but Democrats, that establishment is making excuses. Oh, they don't mean to be Nazis. That's like an ancient symbol and this and that. And I'm like, stop it. You're the same people that banned that wanted to ban the Confederate flag.
Right.
But these guys are literally neo-Nazis, right? Jon Stewart pinned a medal on one. I'll show a picture later. He's wearing a jacket, like a little flag over his thing, because he's covering up an SS tattoo he has on his arm, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, that's
here's my problem. They make this argument, oh, it's only a small number of people, but they don't tolerate that argument, that small number of people argument for anything else except that.
Right.
So, no, they shouldn't join NATO, and we need to get the hell out of there unless they can have an agreement. Because this, again, Ukraine is a whole podcast for us. We could talk about the Minsk agreement, who violated it first, Russia's unjust invasion of whatever, the foreign aid, where the foreign aid is actually going. There's so many levels to that 60 seconds wasn't fair, but we got American fish to fry here.
Yeah,
okay,
agreed.
You know, and as a veteran of the United States Army, I've earned the right to speak on this.
Yes,
as my father before me, and as his father before her.
We should be taking better care of our veterans, of our mental health problem, and our homeless problem.
Yeah, because we just gave them pensions.
Right. No, I mean, it's
we gave their teachers, and then we gave them pensions. We don't have pensions, but they got pensions.
Yeah, not okay.
That's a fact, YouTube. All right. One more question. Is there one more question?
I don't know.
Oh, affirmative action.
Oh, man.
Supreme Court ruled on affirmative action. Yeah. I guess I'll go first on this one. Yeah. Should I? Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. Now, when affirmative action was made, it was designed to give people of color, or people who are not white, an equal opportunity to just be in the room and be talked to, right? You get in the room, you talk to them, boom, and then it's gone to this thing where, like, if he's qualified, you have to hire that person because he's qualified too. And now it's gone to people who are less qualified or whatever, and this and that. So the win or lose, it seems like the people that stand to lose on this are Asian Americans, because Asian Americans were, scoring higher on their tests than most people, and now Harvard or whatever are trying to get. They try to use affirmative action against that population that was just out competing and just being academically whatever. But I want to say this about my Asian brothers and sisters. Besides Mexican Americans, they're the hardest working people you in the United States will ever meet in your life, right? Their parents say their best way out to make it in this world is to be academic. So don't go out there and hang out with your friends. Stay here. You're studying, okay? Stay in this room. You're going to study, and you're going to score high on your SAT, and you're going to get what you deserve. And now when they do all these things and the parents raise their kids and promise these kids on a premise that the rewards at the end, you're trying to say they can't get it because they're doing too well.
Yeah.
So there's this reverse affirmative
Right.
action
Yeah.
that's making me upset. And affirmative action against maybe the smartest black person at Erasmus High School, which is not a competitive high school, that might be overlooked by Harvard. That person deserves a shot too, right?
Yeah.
The same SAT scores, but maybe he wasn't part of the math club and math chess club, because there was no math or chess club in the ghetto,
Yeah.
right? So there,
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, that's one of the biggest problems in America, and it always, we are, yes, the land of opportunity, but nobody has the same starting line, right? And that is a problem, and that's part of what they were trying to help. Like, affirmative action was meant to help that, right? The starting line is different, right? We have this history where people have been adversely affected by our history. Now, the problem is that we're not differentiating between culture and race. And I'm sorry, but there are so many statistics about why, the African American community is disadvantaged. I mean, but you can translate that to a poor white community, or in Appalachia, or where the opportunities aren't there. And if you have a bunch of kids being born out of wedlock, if you have fathers that are not taking responsibility, you have the prison population being greater among, like, that culture is going to suffer.
But if those kids get the equal test score, shouldn't they be the opportunity? Damn the parents, right? Those kids found a way and score anyway.
Oh, I'm all about the kid finding a way.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Eric Anderson, I saw your post, and I want to answer it by saying this. As a man, Eric Anderson, as a guy who identifies with being black, I'm a quote Chris Rock. If it's a tie, tie goes to the black man. That's where my racial bias comes into play. If it's a tie, tie goes to the black man. Eric Anderson, Coach Anderson, who's with us, who's commenting. I want to say this about the other recipients of affirmative action in college. I got a question for you. And you could put a big LOL in the comment section. Here's my question. You hold on to your seat. Are legacy students also considered affirmative action?
What
legacy? George W. Bush gets into Yale. He's a C student, but he gets into Yale because his daddy
garbage.
did. Is that not? Aren't those people considered the category of affirmative action?
Sure.
They don't have the grades. They don't meet the criteria, but because their parents have a building named after them, they get to get into that college and take up a spot too.
Right. Not okay.
Do you see the head fake? This whole podcast should be called Head Fakes.
Yeah.
They're weaponizing Asians and black population, and in the meantime,
yeah.
in the back door,
right.
they're hooking up their rich people.
Right. That's just part of that elitist mentality that I was telling you. I can't stand it.
Yep. When
It's
the days
not
of not
okay.
being allowed to walk through the front door was only decades in the past. Very, very good point.
True.
And Wendy and I make this analogy for volleyball too with the Good Old Boys Club, right? Like Wendy and I, we can have a stair running competition up the stairs, right? Wendy can run 60 floors. I can run 40. Now, Wendy's 60 to 40, that's meritocracy. But getting in the building to run the stairs is not. And that's what Eric, a broader point, Eric was disagreeing with me in the beginning.
It's a good point. It's a good point. It's just anything that gets used to excess.
Right.
And we've got to find ways to.
But Eric, but he's saying no, they get through the door because of cash, not because of the color of their skin. Got it. Affirmative action in the classic tense of in the context is designed to get people who are of different races and ethnicities and whatever. So in the context of of affirmative action and as a term, 100% agree with you, Eric. Thank you for setting the record straight on that. Because I was talking about what this is really about. This thing where the people whose kids rich kids who are not around poor kids are like, there's too many poor kids in this school. We need to get rid of this. All right. Those are the ones who are getting C's in class and still getting the Yale and Harvard. So I kind of spun off that way, but way to keep us on track. My man, you got to meet this guy. Cool. Eric, you have to meet Wendy Jones, man. You two would absolutely love each other. Guys, let's Google search The Option Podcast, Eric Anderson. Eric's a real one. We had a real conversation. Sweet. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Check it out.
In fact, you want to talk about race? When Eric came on the podcast, 8 of my 10 guests, from I guess 40 to 50, were African American. Dane Blanton, Carl Franz, who's at Fairleigh Dickinson University, Eric Anderson, Patrick Dietz, who's Jose Pena's assistant at NYU, Bernard Norman, who's at Central Park playing Savage, Chris Austin, who we all know, right, 2-time or repeat champ at Irvine. So I got my black men covered. If I don't take care of my brothers, who will? And if my brothers don't keep me straight and on the straight and narrow, who will?
But you still never got Ren on here. And where were we 2 years ago today?
And don't think I haven't invited him.
Because that,
you know me.
That would be epic.
It would, but
I want to be on that podcast. But you know me.
When someone says, "How come you never asked me on the podcast?" You know what I do?
You ask.
I'm like, "How about Tuesday? You want to come on Tuesday? I can't do Tuesday. How about Wednesday? Can't do 1 o'clock. How about you pick the time?" So anyone that says that, I will have an open invitation. So now you know he ain't. But he ain't hollering. No, but because when you invite them, and they ain't got time, they lost their hollering rights.
I just think that would be an epic conversation.
Yes. Oh my God.
So maybe if you listen.
Well, I'm going to New York.
Awesome.
August 21st.
Oh, we're just gonna miss
each other. To the 25th.
We are just gonna miss each other.
When are you leaving?
The 26th, I think.
Oh, you're leaving the 26th.
No, I'm going to New York to take.
Well, I know a guy. Just go to the park. They'll be expecting
early.
you. You heard? They'll be expecting you in the park.
God, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was one of the best days of volleyball ever.
All right, so let's finish by doing lightning rounds, which you've done already. And some of these questions feel like they're repeated, but for people that didn't watch previous episodes, we get to do this all over again. Let's set our minute. Actually,
oh man, you're gonna ask me my favorite comedian. I don't know those guys' names.
Well, you got one. You got a minute for me to set up the clock, woman. Get your stuff together. All right, and here we go. Favorite comedian?
I gotta go with Chappelle.
I'm going Chappelle. Last good book you read?
Oh gosh.
I'll go first on this one. Yeah. The Real Anthony Fauci.
Oh.
Hot. Go.
Transcend.
Good. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Pool or beach?
Oh, I'm split on that one right now. I'm in the pool right now, actually.
I'm in the beach because I live in Hermosa. Yeah. Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Harry Potter.
Lord of the Rings. Jesus Christ. Bourbon, vodka, or tequila? She's like wine.
I'll go bourbon. Lately.
I forgot. You're old school. I'm vodka. Favorite sport outside of volleyball?
Tennis.
Mixed martial arts. Favorite action film star growing up? I go Arnold.
Bruce Willis.
Yes! Die Hard! Oh my God. Favorite conspiracy rabbit holes? Well, I guess we call those spoiler alerts now. They're not rabbit holes anymore. The archives of the JFK archives are being released when we're finding out things that were false 3 years ago are now true now. But I've always been infatuated about could Oswald have made that shot?
Yeah.
You know, with that gun in those conditions and this and that. So I've always been intrigued by that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to figure out why everyone in America wants to keep us sick.
Eric Anderson, this is ridiculous. Eric Anderson says, I'm going to be in New York August 12th to the 17th. And I'm going to be in New York the 21st to the 25th. And you're going to be there the 26th. We taking New York shifts, Eric. So, Wendy, let's plug our show. We got a show called Undivided. It's a news thing where we are politically homeless and we come from this objective thing where we have conservative values, we have liberal values, and we provide some information based on our opinion, but we don't feed people what they're supposed to hear. We shape the question, and you and the audience, we all answer the question together. By the way, really, really happy to have you join us on this too, because we weren't even going to do a live version of this. We're doing like a live, and we're taking it down do the edit. But hey,
Good
you two got to meet.
Always fun.
Yeah, Eric. Her son is Luke Turner. He plays at Stanford right now. This is mommy. And her daughter played at for Hector at Texas Christian. So, and Eric.
My third one's a theater kid.
Eric is a coaching mensch. But
Really?
Sorry, yeah.
My third one quit volleyball to go to theater, and like you said, you don't want your kids to do, but she ended up getting a bigger scholarship than any of my volleyball players got. So
Man, don't do that. You do that to your kid, man. Jesus Christ, your kid's in theater.
You gotta let them do what they want to do.
I guess.
Believe me, I loved doing the volleyball mom thing, but she wanted to be a theater kid.
Yeah.
You gotta let your kids
Yes.
chart their own path.
Look, she's gonna have a good time.
She is.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Cool. All right, so our show's called The Undivided. Tell everybody where you can find it.
BeBetterMedia.tv. You'll find us on Binge Networks, and we have my podcast on there, Undivided, which is the show we're doing. We got to get the option up there too.
Right,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. What's your Insta?
What is my Insta?
It's Be Better Media.
BeBetterMedia.life.
BeBetterMedia.life. All right, this is the part of the podcast where I'm supposed to tell you guys how much I love you or how much I don't love you. And for all of you at home, your desktop, you guys know the drill. But Wendy and I, shortly after the podcast, went and saw a movie called The Sound of Freedom. And rather than have a third part to the podcast, we decided to use this as an extension of this podcast. So here it is. So I just got out of the movie theater seeing, and it's windy as hell, which is going to be all awesome. And I just saw the movie Sound of Freedom with this young lady, Wendy Jones, because she's the only one that could stomach films that sometimes might be designed to disturb you or whatever. And this and that. What'd you get from it? I want you to say something first.
It's taken me, 10 days to come see this movie, and people have been talking about it, and I've asked my kids about it, and I think everybody that doesn't go see it is turning a blind eye. And that's what we have the luxury to do in this country, and it's not okay. And I don't want to live in a country where the biggest debate about this movie is whether it's good. Like, how is protecting children political? And how is there a power structure out there that doesn't want this story told?
Right.
And hats off to the producers and the directors and the crowdfunding and the independent media that's bringing it out there. Because when you have words like when there are studios like Amazon and all the big names that we know, that how easy it is to put content up these days, and the quality of that movie, that was made 5 years ago,
Yeah,
and it couldn't find a home.
5 years ago.
It couldn't find a home. Somebody explain that to me.
And 5 years ago was before all of this QAnon and all of this other stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
before all this,
I know.
before we went full gangster stuff.
Yeah.
Post Trump, post Biden, Hillary, like right before the political climate really heated up because of that. So, yeah. Sorry, I wanted you to finish because
No, that was it, and I want to hear what you have to say, Jay.
All right, hold this.
Yeah.
It's going to be on the podcast. It's still recording, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're good. We should have talked yesterday.
Yeah. So, a couple of things, and usually I like to do things in things at 3, and I'm probably going to wind up doing it in things at 3. But I wanted to start with the first part, which is the easy part. It's like someone like me, I study theater. Yeah. And the guy, I get his name. We'll look his name up later. You guys can look up his name now. The guy who is a supporting actor in this film deserves an Oscar. Amen. For Best Supporting Actor. I mean, the lead was good. The lead's always good. Very capable actor or whatever. The entire cast just top notch. But specifically highlighting the guy who was a former cartel member, just trying to do something he calls God's work. All right. So that's the easy part. Now let's talk about the hard part. And we could do this in sections for your social media thing, but it's definitely going to be on my podcast.
Yeah,
because I didn't edit it yet. It's going to be on the end of the podcast.
Yeah, so we talked yesterday and we hadn't seen this movie,
right?
And we both came out saying,
yep.
"Dang, we just podcasted one day too early." So
I know we did.
So okay.
Here's the second thing I want to point out. The thing that was hitting like mainstream news is like some of maybe the cast or someone might be like a conspiracy theorist or a QAnon guy, or this person might be right wing or that person might be left wing, and I didn't really know anything about that, and I still don't really know a whole lot about QAnon, and I don't other than they identify as right-wing and they identify as conspiracy theorists and this and that. But it's also from the same source of people that call Joe Rogan a right-winger and a conspiracy theorist when he's a he's actually centrist, who's voted Democrat his entire life, and called, you know, whatever, RFK a conspiracy theorist. It's so getting rid of that whole conspiracy theory thing. I want to try to make a broader point here. If we as a nation can't take our differences, however significant, and put them aside when we're in a position where we have bigger fish to fry. We're talking about children. We're talking about human trafficking on a general level, but in this movie we're talking about child trafficking specifically. So if we can't say that we can't come together and try to stop this because we're not on the same team for other ideological differences, we fail as a country and as a people. There are things where my friend might be opposed to same-sex marriage. I'm for same-sex marriage. Okay, let's put that aside. Let's rescue some kids, right? Yeah. Let's this guy might not want I don't know, to make a gay person a birthday cake, or this person's against the Second Amendment. How about we get together and decide that free speech is important and we need to fight for that? This person is for the Ukraine war, this person's against the Ukraine war. How about we put those differences aside and say, hey, you know, let's fight censorship, because all of our voices matter, and this includes the uncomfortable one, okay? Free speech is there to protect unpopular speech. Popular speech doesn't need protection, and this is very, very important, and that's the broader point I wanted to make, and I think I banged it out in 3 points. I think I count funny, but that's all I wanted to say about that.
Do you not feel like we are debating so many issues in America every day that people are exhausted from what we're debating about?
Yeah.
And yet a movie like this can come out and people are almost afraid to talk about it.
Right.
How is that okay?
I think, and I'm going to give you I'm going to hold the phone for you back because you're going to have a thought on this. I think it's because when we start becoming hysterical about imaginary problems, we're incapable of solving real problems, right? The general human bandwidth only has so much that they can take in and be triggered about, or become emotional about, where something this big is just like, by the time something this big happens, it's just like, I'm exhausted. I can't, I don't have the power. I don't have the power, and my voice is not being heard anyway. So what's the point?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And it's weird that this has become a party identity thing, because this has happened to Republicans. Fine, okay, but it's always happened to Republicans. But this is happening to a new group of people that are left to the left. This happened to a group of people who are centrist right. So I don't know if I'm steering the conversation to censorship, but I think the reason why problems like this aren't being solved is because we're hysterical about problems that don't really exist.
Right. And we're also protecting a class of people.
Sorry.
Who are we protecting?
Yeah.
Who is being protected in not telling this story, or in creating a false debate about whether this story is really true?
Right. Yeah, we're protecting someone from harm, right? That's because that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
You censor things because you're protecting other people, maybe children or whatever, from going off and doing crazy stuff, right? That's the reason why you censor. Sure. Medical information and this and that. You don't want some dummy to not listen to doctors and do something that's going to hurt themselves. Right. I get that. I get the logic in that. Where's the harm in this?
It's been abused to a point that we don't know what to trust, and what's going on here is that we are protecting a group of people with massive amounts of power that don't deserve our protection. The kids deserve the protection, but we're convincing the next generation that they can't listen to stuff like this, that things like this aren't true. They're afraid to go see a movie like this. I know lots, I mean, what he said at the end, storytellers are...
I forgot how you phrased it.
I was trying to get it exactly right. Storyteller is the hero.
No, storytellers are the most powerful human beings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like Abraham Lincoln, right? He was
So
using
what's-
Abraham Lincoln.
yes.
He was using so many instances where there were revolutions that led to freedom, whether it's the Civil War, you know, freeing slaves, or whether it's the independence, the American Independence War in 1776. It starts with telling the story, and if people believe that story, that there's power in that.
Yeah.
And that can work both ways. But this way,
right.
this
So
way in
what
this
story
movie,
are we
since we're
telling?
talking about this movie, I believe it worked for the good, the better,
I
it
do
worked for
too,
the good
but
of people.
I do too, but why did it take them 5 years to get it out? Why did they have to crowdfund it? And that shows you that there's a lot of really caring, intelligent people in America that want to contribute to stuff like this. These are the stories that need to be told.
Yeah.
But the powers that be are trying to silence all of this and then tell you that you're a conspiracy theorist. Like, that's not, it's not going to fly.
I don't even believe we're getting into the whole conspiracy theory thing. When this goes beyond conspiracy theories. Like, let's say this is based on a true story, right?
Yeah.
And let's say, sorry, it's my turn. Yeah. Let's say this is based on a true story, but they changed some things in the story that weren't real. So what? It's fiction, and it doesn't steer what the general message is. And the other reason is there's more power in dividing people and keeping people in their place. There's just as much power as there is in the power to tell a story that makes everyone come together. Yeah. I don't want to sound like a pessimist, but I think there's a large group of people that are in charge of things that don't benefit from Democrats and Republicans sitting in a movie theater, holding hands, laughing, crying, cheering for the good guy, hoping the bad guy gets theirs. Maybe that's an old school virtue on mine. But there's someone has a problem with a whole bunch of people who have all these differences sitting in a room. Your cell phones are turned off, right? There's no pause button. You can't, you don't, I mean, unless you have to, you really don't, in this movie, you don't want to go to the bathroom. You kind of hold it in. It was a terrific movie, and that's what I wanted to not steer away from. I don't want to talk about conspiracy theories. I mean, we could talk about what are conspiracy theories, and we could talk about what are spoiler alerts these days. I'm talking about a movie that's about child trafficking, that's a story that has to be told that a lot of people don't want to be told. And again, you and I are using our platform to shape the question, asking the question. I'm asking you guys, the audience, why? And let's answer this together. Why? Why? What's the holdup? Why? We're about that life, Wendy. That's what we're about.
I love asking the question, but you got to wonder when you can't keep it simple, when you can't keep the argument real simple, you have to wonder why.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
Riddle me that. Yeah.
That's what I see. Who is not?
This ain't an Instagram post no more.
Who is not in favor of protecting children? How did this become a debate?
Because divisiveness is a powerful tool. Let me take the phone back. Divisiveness is a powerful tool. Look, I'll give you an example. When there was a strike, an Amazon strike in Staten Island, New York. I forgot this brave young man's name, but he didn't go around the room and ask if you voted for Trump. He did not go around the room and say if you voted for that guy, you're not part of this movement, because he didn't have time. He didn't have time to try to punch through something with 3 fingers. You can't punch through something with 3 fingers. You need 5 fingers. 5 fingers makes a fist. A fist can punch through things. You can't make a fist having people parsed up, and that's what this movie did. This movie is like, look, you could be a Democrat or you could be a Republican, okay? The 2 biggest gangs in America. But the one thing Democrats and Republicans have in common, what do we all have in common? We value our children. Watch this movie and ask yourself, what if that was your kid? What would you do? You would do the exact same damn thing this guy did, except you would have been dead because you don't have the expertise he did. Right? Look, I know it requires some cojones, because that's what you were saying the whole movie. This guy's got whatever, right? And the wife was just a major supporter too, right? An Iron Lady. Yeah. But if that was your child, anyone that's ever had a child that's come out, you looked in that kid's eyes on the day they're born, their first day you walk them to school, someone snatches your child away. An hour later, you have no idea where your child is. There's a bunch of people that have them. What are you going to do? Stop it. All of us. There's no political ideology that's going to steer your level of thinking on that. So just stop. And ain't nobody using kids as cannon fodder in this movie for political gain.
No.
Because it's happening. This is a reality. Okay? Yeah. This is a reality. Sorry. Are we done?
I mean, we could be
I
done.
mean, it's not Instagrammable. I
could
could cut some of this, you know, but...
we can be done for today, but I am not done. It takes...
No, this is far from over.
A massive amount of bravery from good, normal, everyday Americans to change things.
Yep.
And that's what they're asking. And it's...
This is going on the podcast.
Yeah,
as this is going on the end.
As it should.
Wendy Jones, Jason DeBillius. It's a hell of a day, people. Oh, yeah, I almost forgot. For all of you at home, for all of you on your iPads, for all of you on your desktop, who runs the world? Old school. For Wendy Jones, I'm Jason DeBillius. This is episode 181 of the Option Podcast. We love you. We're out of here. Come check out the Option Podcast on OptionDB.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.